Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to another episode of Quran in English. My name is Ahmed, and I'm happy to take you on through the third section of chapter Al-Isra. And yeah, I like this section. It has some exciting parts to it. And we'll get to those parts when we get to it. But first, I must explain I'm not an Arabic linguist, nor am I a Quranic scholar. I've not studied the Arabic language beyond school. And I've not studied the Quran prior, and in fact, this is my first read through of the Quran, and I'm sharing my education with you, my education process, in the hopes that you might learn something. You might learn something as well. But if you have a different perspective, feel free to let me know. I'm learning from you as well. The purpose of this channel is education. And I'm approaching this with as sincere a heart as possible to try and really understand what I believe, aside from necessarily what the Muslims believe. So if you're here for what do the Muslims believe, probably not the right channel for you. But if you're here for let's see what we can learn from the Quran together, then yeah, feel free to hang out. I think this is the right place. Hopefully I'll remember to put that in every episode intro. But let's see. Anyway, before we begin, we must always say أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم, and off we go.
قل كونوا حجارة أو حديدا.
Okay, it starts with say be stones or steel or iron. And this kind of out of context doesn't make any sense, but the previous verse that we were covering yesterday is that they say, the people who disbelieve mockingly, that if we are bones and dust, crumbled particles, will we be resurrected as a new creation? As in, they're doubting Judgment Day, they're doubting the day of resurrection, they're doubting that we will all kind of face judgment and rise again after we have died and become bones and dust. And the Quran gives a very interesting example, interesting response to that. But first it starts by telling the Prophet to tell them, you know what, you can be stones or you can be iron. And then it continues saying,
أو خلقا مما يكبر في صدوركم فسيقولون من يعيدنا قل الذي فطركم أول مرة فسينغضون إليك رؤوسهم ويقولون متاه قل عسى أن يكون قريبا.
Okay, several things are being said, but there's the continuation. Be rocks or be iron, or a creation that is greater in your breast. What you believe to be stronger than rock, stronger than iron, whatever you believe the strongest thing is. And it's kind of like in response to, are we, after we're bones and dust, will we be resurrected? So I don't quite understand why this is a response. That you should be whatever you're hardened. And I think this is kind of an analogy of stubbornness. They're saying, oh, so after we're bones and dust, we will be brought back again. And he's like, you know what, be whatever you want. Be whatever strength that you think. I feel like it's kind of like, not a dismissal, but a kind of like, you know what, be whatever you want. If you're not going to believe me, you're not going to believe me. That's kind of the impression that I'm getting. I may be misunderstanding it. But what comes after it is a bit more interesting. They will say, then who will bring us back to life? Who will restore us? Who will make us alive? And it says, and here, again, the understanding is that the Prophet will be saying this, but we can all say this. So I feel like this is an applicable response to the disbelievers who are saying that we won't be resurrected. But I think primarily it was because of the Prophet was sharing the faith of Islam that this was directed at him. But there's a lesson that we can all learn from that. Like, it's not just to say that it was at the Prophet, therefore we should disregard it. But it says, say, the one who created you from the very first time, which is like the most obvious answer. They're like, oh, so after we die, how are we going to come alive? And the answer is like, the same way you came alive the first time, but in a different way. Like, as miraculous as life is, that miracle can happen again in a different format, in a different story. And that's kind of like the ultimate for, oh, how did you get here? How were you created? How do you exist in the shape that you're in? there's a creator, a source. So that's the same thing that's going to bring you back to life, which is a very interesting concept of like, oh, how can there be a miracle? Well, your life is a miracle. So that same miracle provider, that same miracle creator will cause the miracle to happen again, the miracle of life to happen again. But they will, of course, shake at you their heads. They'll shake and they'll say, when will it be? When is this going to happen? And the answer, a very cheeky one, is say, perhaps that it is coming soon. Perhaps it is soon. Which is very interesting. And this is also something that was you find in Judaism and in, I don't know if you find it in Judaism, but I know specifically Jesus was saying the hour is at hand, or I want to say the hour of the kingdom at hand. Let's not get into what Jesus said because I haven't studied the Bible just yet. But yeah, that the hour is at hand. And that's the same response that the Prophet Muhammad was saying about 650 years, 700 years after Jesus. And it's like, it's one of those frustrating answers because it's like, maybe it's near. And it feels like, oh, you're kind of just saying that so you can delay things indefinitely. But the answer is, soon is a matter of perspective. And you don't know if within our lifetimes this is going to happen. And why is this the answer? Why is it not specifically given a time and date? I think because an example came up to me of like one of the famous drag queens that I've listened to. And they asked her, okay, if you have 24 hours to live, what would you do? She's like, well, first thing, I would, stop being sober. I would fall off the wagon. I would consume all the substances. And then I would go and I'd burn a bunch of places down. So it's kind of like, if you know that there's a specific moment that things are going to end or happen, and if that moment is far in the future, then that means, oh, I get away with whatever I want. Or if that moment is nearby, then it means that you're going to act erratically and you're going to be crazy and you're going to be like, ba, 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 ba. So not giving us an answer to that specific question is very, very important, as frustrating as it is. And the other caveat is that for a people, for a time, this is going to be true. Soon is a lot sooner than you imagine. And that's how we need to live our lives. We need to live our lives as if Judgment Day is soon, and you need to act right now. You need to act right, not in the future, not in the past. Like, as soon as you start believing, as soon as you start looking at it, you have to approach it as if Judgment Day is soon, and that is the best model of operation. So as frustrating as it is to have this, perhaps it's soon, answer, there's wisdom in it. And I think it's very powerful for us to approach it from the philosophy that we're seeing before us.
يوم يدعوكم فتستجيبون بحمده وتظنون إن لبثتم إلا قليلا.
We've covered this idea before, but it's good for the repetition. And again, repetition is how you get things in your head, and that's why there's a lot of repetition in the Quran. I, for instance, have been reading the Quran for a year and a half, and there are some things that I've read that don't stick in my head, and it really takes me multiple times to kind of like get it. And some like pretty big questions about God's nature, God's ability, God's awareness, God's knowledge. Like, even though in some verses it's as clear as day and it tells you it, you sometimes forget it. And that's why repetition is so important. But it says, on the day that he will call you, so then you will respond with his praise, and you will think that you had only remained except for a little while. And this talks about the nature of death to the time between death and the time between resurrection. And that the connection that it's having between the two is that when you die, you will feel like you died only for a little while, and then resurrection will have happened. It's not like when you die, you still have to wait centuries, millennia, however long it takes to get to Judgment Day. It just feels like a short period of time. Which we've had a lot of questions in the channel about what happens after you die. Do you go to heaven and hell immediately? Do you have to wait until Judgment Day? The way that this is describing it falls within the philosophy of when you die, you're waiting until Judgment Day, but your waiting doesn't feel like waiting. it feels like just a little while. You know what I mean? You ever had that moment where you like took a really long nap and you felt like, oh, it's only been 10 minutes, and then you realize, whoa, actually it's been 4 hours. Or vice versa, where you had like a 10-minute nap and you feel like, wow, I was sleeping for so long and it was only been 10 minutes. Wow. So our sense of time, specifically when asleep or dead, seems to be not the regular flow of time.
وقل لعبادي يقولوا التي هي أحسن إن الشيطان ينزغ بينهم إن الشيطان كان للإنسان عدوا مبينا.
And say to my slaves to say only that which is better. Ahsan is better, I think, not best. I might be linguistically challenged and it might be best, but yeah. أنا أحسن منك, I'm better than you. أنت أحسن مني, you are better than me. أحمد أحسن على الصف. Ahmad is best or better than the class, but it also kind of means that he's the best of the class, you know. So it's not that far of a jump from best to better, but I just feel like it's better more than it is best. And it's saying, and tell my slaves that, and my slaves is everybody, and my servants is everybody. I use the word slaves. Some people don't like the word slaves. Some people prefer servants, worshippers. It kind of all means the same, but I particularly like the word slaves. To say what's best. And what is best, that indeed al-shaytan, the devil, sows discord between them. And indeed, the shaitan, the devil, was to man an enemy that is clear, an adversary that is clear, an enemy that is clear, a sworn enemy. And we've had this kind of back and forth with Safa and I on Surah Al-Hijr about what does it mean for the devil to do what he's doing. Is it a bad thing, quote unquote? Is it a good thing? Let's not get into the philosophies of it too much, but we're also going to get the story of the devil again once more here.
ربكم أعلم بكم إن يشأ يرحمكم أو إن يشأ يعذبكم وما أرسلناك عليهم وكيلا.
All right, if we just do it one by one, it should be fun. No. Okay, 54. Hold on, 1754. It's free software that's giving me the Quran and its translations for free. I cannot complain. Beggars can't be choosers, so I'm very grateful. So it says, your God, your Lord, is more knowing of you, knows best for you. If he wills, he has mercy upon you, or if he wills, he will punish you. And we did not send you upon them, over them, as a guardian. We didn't send you, prophet, as a guardian, as a keeper over them. And that's generally the message of all the messengers and the prophets, is that they're not the designated keeper of affairs, but they're designed to share the message. That's kind of the most important point. And God knows best, so if he will have mercy on you or if he'll punish you. And yeah, in it lies a feeling of helplessness sometimes, because sometimes you're like, oh, if I'm a good person, I should get good things, or if I'm a bad person, I should get bad things, or why do good people get bad things and why do bad people get good things? And the answer is, God knows best. God knows. رَبُّكُمْ أَعْلَمُ بِكُمْ. God is knowledgeable about you. That's kind of the interesting. And in it lies the wisdom, is that sometimes what we see is punishment or torment is actually better for us, and sometimes what we see is good is bad for us. And we see this in chapter 2 of the Quran with one of the most beautiful phrases. phrases عسى أن تكرهوا شيئا وهو خير لكم, which means perhaps you may hate something and it's good for you, وعسى أن تحبوا شيئا وهو شر لكم, which means you may love something and it's actually quite evil for you or bad for you. And yeah, there is a feeling of helplessness in it all, but the moral of the Quran is that we have to always maintain faith and keep asking for mercy, in hopes that God will give it to us. And there is an element of the more mercy you ask for, the more that you pray to God, the better your lives will be. It does seem to have a connection, a correlation. How much is, but it doesn't mean that you're immune to punishment. It doesn't mean you're immune to suffering. And we're going to get into this very specific verse in these next couple of verses. It says something quite interesting that I find, I have a different perspective than the translation was, but we'll see.
وربك أعلم بمن في السماوات والأرض ولقد فضلنا بعض النبيين على بعض وآتينا داود زبورا.
Okay, here's where we get to the first interesting point, which I kind of very appreciate. And your Lord is most knowing about who is in the heavens and the earth, and we have verily preferred some of the prophets to some. So there is a ranking of the prophets, there is an order of them, and there is a ranking of the messengers and an order of them, that we get from chapter 2. وَرَفَعْنَا الرُّسُلَ دَرَجَاتً عَنْ بَعْضٍ. I'm paraphrasing, let's not take it literally. And in chapter 2, it says we've separated the messengers by degrees, and then it specifically names Jesus, the son of Mary, who was given the Holy Spirit, and the miracles. There was a thing, which I thought meant that the Quran is trying to say that he's the highest degree of messenger. But then, is this saying that, and we gave Dawood al-Zabura, does this mean that David was the highest degree of prophet? I don't know. Which means that I don't know that verse statement is saying that Jesus is the highest degree of messenger. So let's be humble and say that we don't know what we don't know. But it says something interesting. Dawood Zabura. Now, Zabur is the Psalms. The reason David is singled out here because some Jewish authorities at the time of the prophet claimed that no scripture had been revealed after Moses, so the verse refutes the claim by referring to the Psalms of David. I'm sure this is also true, but I don't know if it's necessarily the reason for it. It's important that we mention Zabur, the Psalms. Are the Psalms in the Old Testament or New Testament? The Psalms of David, Old or New Testament? Are from the Old Testament. Yes. Okay, so specifically what the Jews had. Very interesting, very, very interesting. So, oftentimes we refer to in the Quran Al-Kitab, the book. And oftentimes you've seen us explain that the book references Quran, Injil, which translates to the Gospels, which was given to Jesus, Al-Torah, which was given to Moses, which is in the Tanakh, and the Zabur. The Zabur is the fourth one, which is apparently the Psalms. So not only do we have to look at the Torah, we also have to look at the Psalms of David. And this was something that I had a question mark about. I didn't know what David's Zabur was, David's Psalms were. As you saw, I just Googled it. So now I realize that there's another part of the Old Testament that I'm also interested in reading. So I'm interested in reading the Torah, which is the first 5 books of Moses, the Zabur, which is the Psalms of the Old Testament, which is very good for me to know, as well as the Injil, which translates to the Gospels. Now, whether or not the Gospels that we have before us are accurate or the right version or said it the right way or that manipulation, there's so many questions I have about that, so I'm not going to touch the Bible just yet, but this is the 4th installment in the 4th book, and the Psalms are very key. And this is a very interesting footnote, that the Jewish authorities at the time claimed that no scripture had been revealed after Moses. Whereas I know that they have a lot of scriptures since then. Like their scripture is not just the Torah and the Psalms. Their scriptures, they have the prophets, yada 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 yada. So interesting that at the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they claimed that no scripture had been revealed after Moses. Huh. But I know that they also revere David. And obviously the Psalms, David's Psalms, are in the Old Testament. So at some point, they definitely did adopt it and pull it into their the scripture. Interesting. I'm sure there's a wonderful, interesting history lesson. Long story short, Dawood Zabura, Atena Dawood Zabura, we gave David Dawood the Zabur, which is, something that I'm interested in and I would like to read and reveal. Yeah.
قل ادعوا الذين زعمتم من دونه فلا يملكون كشف الضر عنكم ولا تحويلا.
This is the prophet saying to the polytheists, but again, we can also say to the polytheists, say, call upon those whom you claim besides him, besides God. You claim others besides God, but they do not have any power to remove misfortunes, harm, to undo harm, to remove misfortunes from you, nor are they able to transfer it to someone else, to a different time. They can't. Like, the gods that you pray to have no ability to do what you're saying. But this is also like a concept that I struggled with, because then the argument is that God does have the ability to do so, which we know that God has the ability. But sometimes when you pray to God asking for a loved one to not be sick, asking for health, asking for prosperity, sometimes you don't get it. So it's very hard to make this argument about the deities other than God, to say, oh, call them and see if they remove your harm. Because sometimes they'll call them and harm will be removed, and sometimes they'll call them and harm won't be removed. Yeah. But that is just something interesting.
أولئك الذين يدعون يبتغون إلى ربهم الوسيلة أيهم أقرب ويرجون رحمته ويخافون عذابه إن عذاب ربك كان محذورا.
The English translation and what I understood are two different things. So let's go word by word and see what it says. أولئك, those, الذين whom يدعون, those whom they call. يبتغون, seek, إلى ربهم, to their Lord, to their God, a means of access. أيهم أقرب, whichever is nearest. ويرجون رحمته, and they hope for his mercy. ويخافون عذابه, and they fear his punishment. Indeed, the punishment of your God was ever feared. So here they're saying even the closest to Allah. It does say which of them is nearest, but it's clear of those invoked would be seeking a way to their Lord, hoping for his mercy. Oh, okay. No, I misunderstood the English translation. It is agreeing with what I'm saying. Sorry. Let me I read the Arabic and I'm like, it means different than the English. And then I reread the English and I'm like, oh, okay, now the English does mean. So, that which they worship, even the ones closest to God, that which they worship, hope for the mercy of God, and they fear his punishment. Which is an interesting perspective that the Quran has been positing. Which is a difficult concept to wrap my head around, but I feel like this is what the Quran has been telling us for quite some time. That which they invoke is actually praying to God for God's mercy, and is actually fearing God for you know, the punishment of God is, the torment of God is ever feared. So it's talking about those which they worship as if they are believing and following and fearing and seeking God's mercy, which describes them in a very believing way. But then you're talking about the people that are praying to them aren't believing in God. And where does the confusion come from? Because if the thing that which you're praying to is seeking God's forgiveness and avoiding God's punishment, then how did you become misguided and you don't even follow what the thing is doing? You're just following the thing, which is mind-blowing. So like all of the deities that people kind of commune with, all of the different concepts, they're all praying to God. It doesn't say praying to God. It says they hope for his mercy and they fear his punishment. So A, they exist. B, they hope for God's mercy and they fear his punishment. And then C, people still worship them instead of worshiping God. Which is like, huh? If the thing itself that you're worshiping has reverence to God, then A, what are you doing worshiping it? Because you're not really communicating with it in an effective manner because you don't understand what it is saying. And B, where does the confusion come from? Very interesting.
وإن من قرية إلا نحن مهلكوها قبل يوم القيامة أو معذبوها عذابا شديدا كان ذلك في الكتاب مسطورا.
Okay, this is the one where there's also come on, no. Okay, all right, it's fine. The words are on the screen. I'll keep it there. This is the one where I differ, primarily because of the addition of this word. And you'll notice that whenever it has the little carrots at the top right and left, you know that English word is not in the Arabic context. The Arabic words are. And وَإِن مِّن قَرْيَةٍ, and it's kind of saying there's in any town or village, there is no town except that we will destroy it before the day of resurrection, or we punish it a punishment that is severe. So here they've added wicked society, which I feel like they've missed the point, the fact that this is saying or. It's saying there are two options to every village. It will be destroyed or it will be punished. Meaning that destruction is not punishment. And they see destruction as bad, whereas I'm saying punishment is bad. Punishment that is severe is bad. And destruction is actually the natural order of things. And the way that we know this is that often on the day of resurrection, aka the day of judgment, the descriptions are that everything will be destroyed, right? There's the chapter Al-Qari'ah at the end of the book. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم القارعة ما القارعة وما أدراك ما القارعة يوم يكون الناس كالفراش المبثوث وتكون الجبال كالعهن المنفوش فأما من ثقلت موازينه فهو في عيشة راضية وأما من خف. Okay, I'm trying to rush it and I'm hurting it. But I said the first part, which is Al-Qari'ah, which means like the catastrophe. And it's kind of like one of the signs of the judgment day, of resurrection day. Ma al-Qari'ah, what's the calamity? And وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْقَارِعَةُ, what do you think? And what would make you realize what the catastrophe is? يَوْمَ يَكُونُ النَّاسُ كَالْفَرَاشِ الْمَبْثُوثِ, when people will be as the mattress that is laid out. وَتَكُونُ الْجِبَالُ كَالْعِهْنِ الْمَنْفُوشِ, and the mountains will be like a pile of hay, a pile of dust, like kind of crumble into dust. So the description of Judgment Day is that everything is going to be destroyed. So the fact that they've added wicked here means that they didn't understand that the destruction is what will happen to the good places, and then on the opposite hand, or the bad places will be punished a punishment that is severe. At least that's how I understand it. And there's more to that. First it says, and that is in the book written.
And there's another statement. We read in chapter Yunus that the only people that had averted their punishment were the people of Yunus because they listened to him.
And the way that it phrased it was that we removed the punishment of them, or we removed the torment upon them until a certain moment, which kind of indicates that torment and punishment and suffering are coming to all peoples and all countries and all locations. And this might be a bit more of a doom and gloom perspective than what a lot of people are seeing, but I think it's also kind of the nature of life, and to be alive is not the same as to be in heaven. And a lot of people confuse the two. A lot of people think that, if God should be loving, God should be, most merciful, mean that I should always get the mercy. That's not quite the same. When we get into heaven, things become the utopia, the paradise, the ideal. The fact that we're on earth means that suffering is almost a guarantee. To love is to be vulnerable to suffering, right? Because the love of your life can fall sick, can pass away. Nothing lasts forever. There's the one guarantee is that death is going to come to all of us. So there's no happily ever after in a human sense on earth. So we're all bound for suffering one way or another. But here it's kind of painting a picture of two things. Destruction versus punishment versus torment. And I'll take destruction over torment. I'll take, for instance, if I could choose between dying quickly and suffering, give me dying quickly, I'll take it. It's a good thing. And that's kind of what I'm saying. Even though it seems like it's doom and gloom, it's actually kind of merciful. But it ties back into the previous verse where God puts his mercy upon whom he wills and punishes whoever he wills. Yeah.
وما منعنا أن نرسل بالآيات إلا أن كذب بها الأولون وآتينا ثمود الناقة مبصرة فظلموا بها وما نرسل بالآيات إلا تخويفا.
Okay. It says, and nothing has stopped us that we send the signs, except that denied with it the former people. What is this verse saying? They're saying nothing keeps us from sending the demanded signs, but also since the time of the Prophet, we haven't really had any serious revelations, any serious messengers, any serious signs. We've just had the Quran for 1,500 years, 1,450. And here it's saying what's stopping us from sending signs or verses? What's stopping us from sending signs or verses? Except that people are going to deny them anyway, right? So there's the message here is there's no point in sending a sign because people aren't going to listen. And the Quran is littered with stories, primarily of the Israelites, but this is also within their own scriptures, that they were given an abundance of miracles and signs, and they failed time and time and time and time again. So here it's saying there's no point in sending a sign, except that they're going to deny the former people. Which then makes me think, because I always have this theory on this channel that there will be another messenger, because of the way that the Quranic verse about the Prophet Muhammad is phrased, that he was a messenger of God and the seal of the prophets. So there will be no more prophets, but there will be messengers. It's just the way that it's phrased. It's not saying that he was the seal of the messengers, even though most Muslims believe it. So then it makes me question of when that messenger comes, if that messenger comes, obviously, will he have a sign, or is it the final sign, so to speak? And it's not there to tell people, to make them believe, but to bring about Judgment Day, so to speak. But again, we are jumping into theories and ideas that aren't in the verses in front of us. All we see in the verse in front of us is we don't send signs or verses because the former people had denied them. And then it says, and we gave, and here gives an example, we gave Thamud, which we've seen on this channel, the she-camel, al-naqa, the female camel, as a visible sign, but they wronged her. She was a very beautiful camel, and they were told not to kill her, and of course they did kill her. And the shriek took him. And we do not send the signs except as a warning. The exact word is takhwifan, which means to scare. So I saw it somewhere as a threaten, but I can't remember where I saw the threatening. Maybe it's in the next verse. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا بِالْآيَاتِ إِلَّا تَخْوِيفًا. As a warning, yeah, and the signs are designed. Yeah, a warning makes sense. A threat is another way of understanding it, as something that instills fear is another way of looking at it.
وَإِذْ قُلْنَا لَكَ إِنَّ رَبَّكَ أَحَاطَ بِالنَّاسِ وَمَا جَعَلْنَا الرُّؤْيَا الَّتِي أَرَيْنَاكَ إِلَّا فِتْنَةً لِلنَّاسِ وَالشَّجَرَةَ الْمَلْعُونَةَ فِي الْقُرْآنِ وَنُخَوِّفُهُمْ فَمَا يَزِيدُهُمْ إِلَّا طُغْيَانًا كَبِيرًا.
Okay, I'm very curious. What was the vision Muhammad saw? Well, meditating, we know that. Is that what it's talking about? Is it talking about Gabriel? But that wasn't a vision. Right? All right, let's see what the verse says, and then I'll kind of explain to what we think. I'll see. Huh? What? Okay. And when we said to you, indeed, your Lord has encompassed mankind. And this is kind of an interesting perspective of where God is. God is all around us. And yeah, I saw this beautiful little caricature. I think it was like from a Buddhist perspective, but it's like God, 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 God. Like everything is God. And like, obviously there's a distinction between the physical things and objects and the actual entity of God, but God surrounds all of us. So in a weird way, we are all enacting God's will and we are all bringing it forth. And we are all brought here by the kind of like the soul of God, right? We're given life. We're animated because of God. So this idea that God is within and without and all around is a very this is what this verse is saying, because your God has encompassed mankind, humans. Then it says, and we did not make the vision that which we showed you, except as a test or as a trial for mankind, and the tree that is cursed in the Quran. So here they're saying, we have made what we brought you to see during the night journey mentioned in 17:1. Okay, so here it's, in the first chapter of this verse, the first verse of this chapter, we talked about the Isra wal Mi'raj, where the Prophet had traveled from Mecca to Jerusalem. Sorry, my brain is thinking and processing and coming up with an idea. Traveled from Mecca to Jerusalem. But here it's saying it's a vision. The reason why I'm hung up on it, because a vision is something that you see without necessarily physically going somewhere. And the story of the Isra and the Mi'raj is that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam Muhammad was physically moved from Mecca to Jerusalem. So I don't feel like this is talking about that specific occasion. And we're saying, yeah, I feel like it's separate. I understand what this book is saying during the night journey mention, but that wasn't a vision. The first verse said we moved his servant from Mecca to Jerusalem, and we know from the Prophet and from the stories of the Prophet and the stories on the Hadith that he physically traveled there. Maybe he had a vision while he was there. Muhammad saw during Isra wal Mi'raj. During his vision of Al-Isra wal Mi'raj, Prophet Muhammad saw paradise, hell, and met with past prophets, including Adam, Moses, and Abraham, as he ascended through the heavens. He was also taken on a miraculous night journey from Mecca to Jerusalem, where he prayed with them. Ultimately, he had an intimate conversation with Allah, which resulted in the divine commandment of the 5 daily prayers. So this is what we haven't covered in this channel so far, because it's a part of Hadith. And at the moment, the current education interest of this channel is to look at the Quran alone. So all of these, can we see the source? It's always a bit. Oh yeah, you guys can't see it. Let me move it around. Muhammad saw and experienced the earthly journey. The earthly journey began with a miraculous journey from Masjid al-Haram to Mecca, Masjid al-Aqsa in Jerusalem, as a significant site in Islam. And then it says ascension through the heaven, al-Mi'raj, which some people have said is alluded to in Surah Al-Najm, which is chapter 54, if I'm not mistaken, which we will get to at some point. But I kind of read it briefly, but it didn't explain. So we really have to look at the hadith to understand what this is saying, which is not something that I particularly want to do, but we have to understand it a little bit more in order to understand this phrase. After Jerusalem, Prophet Muhammad ascended through the 7 heavens. First heaven, he saw a tall, huge man. Second heaven, he encountered John the Baptist, Yahya, and Jesus, Isa, which is pretty interesting. Third heaven, he saw Yusuf, who is describing as having half of all beauty as mentioned in Islamic tradition. We've already covered the chapter of Yusuf, of Joseph, earlier, and that he was indeed absolutely beautiful. Fourth heaven, he met Idris. Fifth heaven, he encountered Aaron, which is Moses' brother. Sixth heaven, he met Moses. And seventh heaven, he saw Ibrahim leaning on Al-Bayt Al-Ma'mur, the frequented house. Again, the purpose of this channel is to focus on the Quran. So I don't want to spend too much time on anything outside of the Quran for that reason. But we do understand that here's something that is said. The 5 daily prayers came as a result of this travel and ascension. So Al-Isra wal-Mi'raj, Isra is to move from Mecca to Jerusalem. Mi'raj is, I guess, the ascension into the 7 heavens and back down. At least that's what's being said in front of us. And apparently we did not we did not make this vision that which we showed you except as a trial for mankind. And I wonder what that means. And here they're saying it in a different grammatical form. So we have made what we brought you to see, as well as the cursed tree in the Quran, only as a test for the people. But here it says, and we have only made the vision which we showed you except as a trial for people. And then it says, and the tree that is accursed in the Quran. Why would it add the and after the except as a trial to the people? And why would the tree itself be a test? The vision can't be the tree that is damned in the Quran. The ascension to heaven can be. Because people argue in it and disagree. And it says in the end, وَنَخَوِّفُهُمْ, again, it's that word again, تخويفا, warning, نخوفهم, threaten them. That's why I said it says threaten them. ونخوفهم فما يزيدهم إلا طغيانا كبيرا. So the accursed tree in the Quran, and we threaten them, but it only increases them in transgression that is greater. I'm going to these below my notes. Give me 1 second. Oh wait. Oh! It's a good thing that I didn't keep it over here. I have to switch here because otherwise we wouldn't hear the Quran. Whew. Apologies, but in these studios you get a live feed, a live studio feed. Let's not get too crazy. Yeah, the tree that is cursed, threatening them, makes sense. The vision being a test as a threat doesn't make sense. Like if I put the cursed tree in the Quran, which the cursed tree is the tree of Zaqum, which is mentioned in 37:62. We'll get there because it's a tree in hell, and essentially the pagans in Mecca used to make fun of the Prophet and say, "How can a tree grow in hell?" You'll see. Sorry. I was trying not to do that but yeah. And it starts by saying, we said, وَإِذْ قُلْنَا لَكَ إِنَّ رَبَّكَ أَحَاطَ بِالنَّاسِ, and we said to you that your Lord has encompassed mankind. Number 1. And we didn't make the vision for you except as a test for people. 2. And the tree that is cursed in the Quran. 3. So we scare them or threaten them, but it only increases them in transgression. 4. Yeah. If we take them as 4 disparate comments, it makes sense. God encompasses people. The vision's but a test. But what is and the tree that is cursed in the Quran? Because here they're saying the test. Okay, so if we compare the test of the tree that scares them, it's also a test. Because the idea of a scary tree is supposed to test people, but it's only going to increase some disbelievers in transgression. So the vision is a test because it's whether or not people will believe it. The tree is a test because it scares them, but if they increase in transgression, then that's a test that's failed. So I in the end, I'm taking the English translation that we see, that both the vision and the cursed tree are tests. Why is the cursed tree a test? Because it's a warning, but it only increases them in defiance. Okay. All right. I told you we were going to cover our good old pal Shaitan. He's not our good old pal. humanity's adversary and enemy. And here we go.
وإذ قلنا للملائكة اسجدوا لآدم فسجدوا إلا إبليس قال أأسجد لمن خلقت طينا.
And when we said to the angels, prostrate to Adam, bow before Adam, so they prostrated, they all bowed down, except for Iblis. Again, that age-old discussion, was Iblis among the angels? Because we told the angels bow down to Adam, everyone bowed down, except for Iblis. Except means that he's a part of them, but anyway. We also know Iblis was jinn, so was made of jinn, and anyway. So I all bowed down except for Iblis, and he said, should I bow down to that whom you have created from clay, from mud? And the comparison is that Iblis, you created me from fire. We see this in other parts of the Quran. Iblis says, you created me from fire. Fire is better than mud. Why would I bow down to mud? Essentially.
قال أرأيتك هذا الذي كرمت علي لئن أخرتني إلى يوم القيامة لأحتنكن ذريته إلا قليلا.
He said, do you see this whom you have honored? So again, this is Iblis talking to God about Adam. Adam is whom God is honoring, and Iblis like, this human that you're creating, that you're saying is so special. Well, if you delay me, makes more sense. But it's kind of like if I rise above, or if you're delaying me towards the day of resurrection, then I will surely destroy his offspring, except for a few. And that's the devil's kind of commitment. I'm a get y'all, and I'm gonna get his offspring, except for a select few will survive. Which is a scary thing to say. But again, this is what the devil is saying, not necessarily what God is saying or what's going to happen. But we have seen other parts of the Quran where it says most people will be disbelievers. But anyway.
قال اذهب فمن تبعك منهم فإن جهنم جزاؤكم جزاء موفورا.
And the grammar's a bit interesting, but it says, he said, go, then whoever follows you from among them, then hell is your recompense. A recompense that is ample. Mafura, offered in amplitude. Whomever follows you, then hell will be your reward for you. And you is a plural you, so it's not just talking about the devil himself. But it's so interesting that it starts talking in the whoever follows you from them, so it's talking to the devil, then hell will be for all of you, it's talking to the plural humans, which is like within the same sentence. Which, yeah, sometimes the Quran does that.
واستفزز من استطعت منهم بصوتك وأجلب عليهم بخيلك ورجلك وشاركهم في الأموال والأولاد وعدهم وما يعدهم الشيطان إلا غرورا.
And God is saying, and incite whom you can from among them with your voice, and assault upon them with your cavalry and your men, and be a partner for them in wealth and children, and promise them. And what you promise them is nothing except, what you promise them, O devil, O shaitan, is nothing except delusion. Anyone that follows you will be deluded. And there's a kind of a hint of arrogance in this. It's like you're deluded that, everything's going to be fine, everything's going to be great. It is not necessarily arrogance. It is specifically delusion, because Delusions come in many forms. Yeah, and those who follow you, and what you promise them is nothing except for delusion. Lies من lies.
إن عبادي ليس لك عليهم سلطان وكفى بربك وكيلا.
Indeed, my slaves are not for you over them any authority. My servants, you have no authority over them. And here they add the caveat of faithful, because in another verse of the Quran it says that everybody is a servant, a slave to God. I like the word slave. But yeah, here they're kind of specifying that, yeah, and the Quran has also mentioned multiple times that you only have authority over those who follow you. And this is talking to the devil. And this is what God is talking to the devil, right? وَكَفَى بِرَبِّكَ وَكِيلًا. And sufficient is your Lord as a guardian. And this is kind of an important phrase, right? A lot of the times, you know, you can worry, how do I survive the devil? How do I beat the devil? How do I resist the devil? How do I... And it's also like a scary thing. Like you kind of have this constant enemy who's watching to trip you up and tempt you and make you fail. And it's not just you being falling to him. He's also sending people and knights. And that's what I was saying in the previous verse. And how do you survive people who worship the devil? And how do you survive people who are take the devil as an ally? And the important thing is to understand that God is your Lord, your God is sufficient as a guardian. And this is why it's important to pray, and this is why it's important to convene with God, and this is important why it's to walk on the right path. Because God is enough to protect you from the devil. All you have to do is ask for his help. You know?
ربكم الذي يزجي لكم الفلك في البحر لتبتغوا من فضله إنه كان بكم رحيما.
Your God, your Lord, is the one that drives for you the ships in the sea, so that you may seek from his bounty. Indeed, he is to you ever merciful. And again, why should you depend on God? Why should you ask him to be your guardian? Because he makes things possible and he bestows his mercy upon you.
وإذا مسكم الضر في البحر ضل من تدعون إلا إياه فلما نجاكم إلى البر أعرضتم وكان الإنسان كفورا.
And when it touches you hardship in the sea, the lost are those who you call except for him alone. So if you call others other than God, those people are lost. But if you call him alone, you're not lost, which again is a struggle to accept, because some Greek sailors used to pray to Poseidon and eventually make it to the seas, right? They weren't really lost. But I think it's more a metaphor than it is literal. But anyway. But when he delivers you to the land, then you turn away. So even if you were to pray to God, and you see this with people in planes, if the plane has turbulence, like, oh my God, please save me, God, see me, just get me through it. And then as soon as the plane lands, it goes, ooh, God who? And that's a very common thing. And indeed, man is ever ungrateful. And also kind of why you always need to pray, because faith is not permanent. And our natural state is to be egotistical and to have the devil get the better of us. So you constantly have to fight this nature in order to succeed.
أفأمنتم أن يخسف بكم جانب البر أو يرسل عليكم حاصبا ثم لا تجدوا لكم وكيلا.
So do you feel secure that it won't swallow you the side of the land, that the earth won't swallow you? Or he'll send upon you a storm of stones. Interesting. Then you're not able to find for you any guardian.
Are you that secure that the earth's not going to swallow you and that there's not going to be storms flying? Now, again, for the non-believer or for the new to faith, to be like, earth swallow us, a storm of stones. I ain't never seen something like that. But you never know. You never know what's going to come. The question is, are you secure? Which I kind of want to say it in a cinematic way. Do you feel lucky, punk? But do you really feel like you are beyond reach is the main statement. And the last verse for today.
أم أمنتم أن يعيدكم فيه تارة أخرى فيرسل عليكم قاصفا من الريح فيغرقكم بما كفرتم ثم لا تجدوا لكم علينا به تبيعا.
I don't particularly. I find it disrespectful to say, but I don't particularly resonate. I was going to say I don't like this verse, but I think I don't resonate with this verse. Sounds better. Or do you feel secure that he sends you back in it another time? So he sends upon you a hurricane from the wind, so he will drown you. Okay, he'll send you back to sail another time, and then he'll send you a wind from the rain, so that it will drown you. Because of what you disbelieved, then you do not find for you against us therein an avenger. Which is, again, like, I don't know why I felt more secure. I liked the example of the earth swallowing you or there being a storm of stones, because it felt like those things aren't possible, and it felt like it's speaking in hyperbole. And I imagine the Quran is still speaking in hyperbole now, to say that, are you secure that you won't go back onto sea and then the storm won't take you, and then you will drown because you disbelieved, which is just, it's the reason why I don't resonate with this and why I don't like it is because disbelievers don't drown. Some do, some don't. It doesn't feel like those who disbelieve drown, you know? Like, it's a hard for me to accept. So it's got to be hyperbole. It's got to be an example. And then you won't find anybody to avenge you, which is kind of like, also, huh? Yeah. This verse and I are not on the same wavelength. Let's just say it's not for me. But not every verse of the Quran should be for you. Some things will resonate for you. Some things will speak to you, and some things, I guess, won't necessarily be applicable or make sense or sit with you or work for you. And there have been many other examples that have not necessarily resonated with me. So it's okay. It's okay for me to not have a particular connection to a specific verse. Cool. Interesting. Lots of things were said. Very interesting episode. Yeah, as usual, I always end with Sadaq Allah al-Ali al-Azim. And I thank you for watching this episode. And I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Ma'as salami. Bye.